What's up, everyone? My name is Joe Melsack with Healing from the Rough. Matt and I want to thank you for joining us on this journey as we explore the healing powers of golf while trying to break down the stigmas that come with PTSD and other mental health issues in veterans and first responders. Hope you enjoy the show. As I mentioned in the intro, my name is Joe Melsack with Healing from the Rough, and I've partnered with Matt McDonald, Army veteran and founder of Next 18, to bring you the stories of veterans and first responders who are finding a way to deal with the stigmas and the traumas that come with PTSD and other mental health issues. Each week we're going to play 9 holes and talk all about their struggles and how they've found a way to overcome. This week we're going to talk about Next 18 and what their mission is and how you can get involved.
Next 18 is a mental health nonprofit for vets and first responders. Our mission is using the sport of golf as a conduit to provide transformational mental health and holistic lifestyle resources to vets and first responders. We use the sport of golf, a traditional 4-day golf camp model. Each day of these camps, our participants get about 2 hours of lessons from PGA pros, 18 holes of golf or 9 holes of golf depending where we're playing, and then we incorporate about 4 to 5 hours of mental health training, little 15 to 20 minute modules and then 90-minute modules. And when we have our overnight camps, we also incorporate another about a 45-minute to 60-minute conversation each night with that as well to further the engagement and the talks of each day.
So who can attend your camps?
Right now we are primarily veterans and first responders. We believe that the commonalities between the two groups are pretty both unique, but they also they serve the same purpose in that vets and first responders deal with a lot of unique traumas. We're no different than other humans. It's just the things that we see on a daily basis kind of force us to view things a little bit differently. So when we get these participants together, the understanding and the trust and kind of the bond is already there from shared experiences. But once they start talking, that's where they really start seeing the bonds. So we try to keep it vets and first responders.
I actually attended one of your camps about 8 months ago, and there was a lot of things in your camps that normally I wouldn't do. Like, I'm not really into the yoga scene and the mental health training stuff, but I found it very useful. What would you say to somebody like me who wouldn't normally enlist that in their everyday life? In my case, there's a lot of things I took away from your camp that I still do now, but would have never done until I went to one of your camps.
I think at the end of the day, one of the things we really try to strive is self-care. Veterans and first responders, just like many adults in general, we have a tendency not to take care of ourselves. We isolate, we overload our plates, we take care of everyone else before ourselves, and when we look in the mirror at the end of the night, it's like, what have I done for myself? That can be fine in the immediacy, but long term, not taking care of yourself can be really detrimental. And if you're trying to take care of other people, if you're not taking care of yourself, eventually the quality and the level of care that you give others is going to dwindle. So teaching mindfulness exercises, body scanning, having our participants go through intro to yoga, breath exercises. We start these early on in the program to emphasize, hey, first of all, we got to take care of ourselves. So let's do these exercises that allow you internally to focus on your breathing, to focus on where your headspace is at, and then we kind of just, over the course of 3.5 days, build on that to get into some more deeper trauma and things that affect us on a different level. So it's really important to give these resources, because when they leave the camps, our participants go back into their traumas, their triggers. If they have a really toxic relationship with a spouse or employees or family, they leave the camp and they go right back to that. We try to stress to them that the world hasn't changed. You've gained these resources, but the world went on without you, kind of when we're deployed, right?
Yep.
We want to give them even one tool so that when they leave, it becomes muscle memory. They practice over and over. It's like military training, so that when you actually need that resource, it's automatic, and you take a second and you take a breath. So I think at the end of the day, one of the main focuses is kind of defeating the stigmas of the way things have always been. We don't talk about our traumas. We don't talk about what we're dealing with internally. We don't share our emotions. We're trying to get veterans and first responders to a place of acceptance and understanding that we're probably all pretty similar. And the way society has been going, especially with COVID and all of the isolation, through no fault of our own, has really exacerbated the depression, the isolation, the feelings of being alone, which is already on top of what we're already dealing with as vets and first responders. I think we all kind of know, without really knowing, if you're paying attention to it, the numbers of suicides and things like that in the veteran community and the first responder community. It's abysmal. It's terrible. And a lot of times, from the vets that we've seen and the first responders just at our first couple of camps, these people aren't talking about their stuff. And they're like, literally, they're not even talking about it to their spouses, their friends, their families, and they live in this world where it's just themselves against the world, and that's not conducive to getting better. So we're really trying to build an environment, it's a support network. As we add more alumni, now we have more people that have gone through it and can engage you when we have them at outings and future events, making an awareness of it too. I think, if kids see these firefighters and police officers and veterans, this macho role model, historical role model, opening up and talking about their traumas and their emotions, and you see them crying and processing things, I think we can kind of start changing more than just the veteran and first responder communities too. We start making it an acceptable thing to be comfortable with your emotions, the uncomfortable stuff that we don't like to deal with as a society.
And I think that's one thing, especially one of the reasons we're doing this is the stigmas that come with it, right? We come to the camps, and we can go to the camps and we can talk to everybody there, and we can relate and we can talk. But talking to your spouse, talking to your family, talking to your friends, people who weren't there, it's like there's a common understanding that they're not going to understand what we're going through. Or because we went through it, they think of us on this pedestal, and it's hard to say, hey, I'm not that person you think I am. Yes, I did great things, but I struggle with things every single day, and relating that to them seems to be more difficult. But for us to sit here and talk about it and people to watch, it seems a lot easier because we're just talking to each other, and everybody can kind of get their take on what's going on.
I think something I've learned from my my education for the degree that I'm working on right now is that the more you talk about something, right, low-hanging fruit, it becomes easier and easier. And if we relate it back to time in the military, it's muscle memory. It's, like I said before, the more you talk about it in moments of calm, the easier it becomes to talk about it when stress is high and the emotion kicks in and you're moving from a rational to an emotional state. If they practice at our camps, even if it's just one time, and they're, you know, we're sitting in a group environment and you share something with me that you haven't shared in 10 years, and you all of a sudden around the group you're hearing, yep, guys are shaking their head, women are nodding, like it's affirming what's going on in your head, and it's holding a place for you, an acceptance of, yeah, it's validation. Now it feels a little easier to talk about, and you kind of open it up even more as the camp goes on. All of a sudden you go home. We just had a camp up in Kohler last week. It was our first one of the year. I've gotten a handful of texts already from the participants from the camps. Hey, thanks so much. I went home and I shared with my spouse what I shared with the group, and now she understands me. Like, yeah. It's amazing. And that's exactly what we want, because the spouses and the children and the families, we often forget that they deal with this too. They deal with it more than anyone, because, you know, historically the resources aren't there to take care of them. So in a way, we're kind of healing the whole family. We're trying to.
And I think that's a great thing. I mean, looking forward, you know, regardless of where you end up, or wherever Next 18 ends up, regardless of where Healing from the Rough ends up, just putting it out there and being able to have those conversations, if it heals one person, it's worth every second.
Exactly. We're so far gone past the point of people just openly talking about stuff. So to see our participants doing it at these camps, it's beautiful.
If you'd like to attend a Next 18 camp or just want to find out how you can help in the mission, please visit next18.org. You can also follow Next 18 on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I will put those links in the description box below.
I think even just back to this camp that we just did last week up at Kohler, when we get these participants in an environment where they start opening up, and it definitely doesn't happen right away, right? Like, there is an arc and a trajectory to each camp. There's, you know, they get to the camp the first day and they're everybody's like this, kind of closed off, the body language. And then we start doing some exercises, and they start hitting balls next to each other on the range, and they're cracking their dark humor jokes that, you know, we all know exist in our communities.
Yep.
And then they start sharing, and some of them share deeper right away, and some of them kind of need to watch, right? It's we're all at different levels in life, different stages, and at the end of the camp, when we do our AAR, our after action review of the camps and things like that, and then even now where it's been 5 days since the camp ended, the responses that I get from them, the testimonials and the videos, and when you've got a veteran at a camp who's talking about a trauma that happened 18 years ago and he's never talked about it, I think from a clinical setting and my short experience with my last placement, like, the trauma and the stress that you're carrying and the weight from that, to finally dump that. And that's something we do with the end of the camps, giving them that chance to unpack the baggage. I mean, it can be life-changing. And the responses from some of them just this past week have been, you know, I talked to my wife and I identified as, I finally understand that I'm the toxic part of the relationship. To hear a grown adult admit that, right? I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot to process for myself, knowing that we're having that impact, but also knowing that that individual went home and actually followed through. You know, because it's one thing to sit at a camp and say, hey, I'm going to go home and talk about this, and then you go home and that trigger hits and you're right back to where you were. But to actually see that they're going home and they're talking about this stuff, and to hear on some level it's resonating with the spouse or the kids, and if that's the start, I've done my job. We've, as an organization, done our job.
So who can attend your camps? Because I know and I know your answer pretty much could be everybody, but just kind of give a brief description because, in my camp, there's guys like me who golf 50 times a summer, and there's people who've never golfed in their life.
Yeah. So again, it's veterans and first responders, but in that community, it can be literally, if you've never touched a golf club in your life, or you don't have golf clubs, or you play 100 times a year, golf is the modality that we use to get you into nature and get you engaged and to open up a little bit. We've been fortunate enough to work with a local First Tee organization in Milwaukee recently, and they've been donating some used golf clubs. So we're at least at a point where if a participant comes and they don't have clubs, we can give them a refurbished bag, a refurbished set of clubs. Long term, as this thing takes off, we want, somebody like PXG, TaylorMade, Titleist. It would be awesome to have a partnership with them to be able to provide clubs to these people, but I understand we have to grow into that.
Maybe even a place, like Second Swing or somebody
Yeah.
that donates, clubs that they're not going to sell or things like that.
Right.
Anything to get somebody on the course, because in your case, the healing and all the things that you do aside from the golf in your camp, even though a lot of your camp is revolved around golf, it's the mental part of it. And, being able to just get out here, if you have a cheap set of clubs and you can just come out and get away, you look, it's just nature. There's nothing here.
Right.
I heard you say before, you can leave your phone in the car, you can disconnect. You don't have to, be engaged in the outside world. You're just here, and it's just, that in itself can be healing to some.
Yeah, recreational therapy is a beautiful thing, and I think we're learning more and more, especially in the veteran community where I'm used to seeing it, recreational therapy and getting people out and just talking, right? You're in nature, you're engaged, you're loosening up, you're getting sun, and before you know it, you're talking about stuff that you haven't talked about in the past.
If you're a veteran or first responder who has struggled with PTSD or other mental health issues and want to be a guest on our show to help us break down the stigmas that come with those issues, please email me at joseph.melsack@hftr.us.
When I got out of the military, I went to a couple of these organizations, Semper Fi Fund, Challenge Aspen, Focus Marines, and each organization kind of has their wheelhouse. And I'm grateful for all of them. By no means would I ever have anything negative to say about any organization that I've worked with. I think they're all amazing and they do great work. My main experience with adaptive sports was with Semper Fi, and I've gone on probably 3 or 4 retreats with them now, golfing, sailing, skiing, and they've all been great experiences. And where Semper Fi really excels is just getting the person out, getting the vet out and engaging and not isolating. Where I saw maybe that I could add value to something like that was, what if we bring them together and we're playing this game of golf, but we're also giving 4 or 5 hours of mental health resources. And going to an organization like Focus Marines last December, that was more geared towards, let's identify where these traumas in us are. So I've kind of watched how all of these organizations operate, and then I thought to myself, let's see if I put pieces from each together to make like a hybrid program. Right. Semper Fi, their whole adaptive sport is just recovery through sport. They don't, from what I understand, they don't want to get into that avenue of dealing with the mental health. For them, it's just, let's get the participants engaged. And that's great, because again, when I went to them the first time, I needed it. I needed to be around vets. And I remember going and thinking, I got there the first day and I think there were a couple amputees, and I was just like, this is not where I need to be. I shouldn't be here. and I opened up to it and I warmed up to it, and here we are now. So it did what it needed to do. I just want to be able to add the mental health resources and really drive home, hey, we're having a good time, but let's try and fix some stuff now so that long term the life is just healthier and happier.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing is fantastic, honestly, and that's part of the reason that we partnered up. You know, I had this idea, and you helped make it better. And I mean, in all honesty, you can't say enough about it. And yeah, healing through sport is great. By no means is there anything negative to say about that. But there's a lot more than just playing golf. You know, we talked about it a few holes back, just the nature itself. There's healing properties within golf. And I know golf was one of the biggest things during COVID. It blew up. It was one of the only things you could do. So it was easy to fall into golf. But then on our end, you know, with the traumas and things that we deal with, finding that healing property within it, I think speaks to a whole new level of, you know, watching professional golf on TV, you know, which is amazing, but there's a lot more to it that I think can be said about the game of golf.
It's a beautiful game, and
It
I'm
is.
so happy that I get to use it as the way to give these resources.
That's it for today's episode, and I really hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons below and follow us every week as we bring you on this journey with us. Once again, I do apologize for the wind noise, and I promise you that we would do better going forward. A few special thank yous to send out. Brian from VetBiz TV, thank you very much for your guidance on this journey. Old Fashioned Golf for the apparel, which we hope to have on sale for the public soon. And Fire Ridge Golf Course in Grafton, Wisconsin for letting us use their location to film this episode. If you have a golf course or work at a golf course that you would like to have us out to film an episode, please make sure to email me at joseph.melsack@hftr.us. Last but not least, if you want to help us on this journey so we can reach more veterans and first responders all across the U.S., please make sure to hit the donate button below. Every dollar helps. Thank you very much and have a great day.